That rainy night, Clara felt something different in the air, a premonition that made her quicken her pace through the wet streets of New York. She was alone, as usual, but something was wrong. The sounds around her, which usually comfort her, now seemed frightening. And it was then that she heard it, the footsteps of someone following her closely. A mix of fear and curiosity took over her. Who would it be? And why was he following her? Clara, blind since childhood, learned to trust her instincts, but that night, her heart beat faster than ever. Little did she know that this unexpected encounter would not only change her life, but also lead to a revelation she could never have imagined. What would you do if you were in her place? How would you react when you discover the truth about who is lurking? Clara walked through the wet streets of New York, feeling every drop of fine rain that fell on her hair, a common experience for anyone, but for Clara, every sound and smell was intensified. As a perfumer, she had a special sensitivity to scents, and on that rainy night, the smell of wet earth mixed with the scent of flowers that she carried in her bag. But something broke her concentration, a sound of quick footsteps behind her. She stopped, but the footsteps also stopped. The tension in the air was palpable. Without vision, Clara depended on her other senses to decipher the world around her, and something told her that someone was watching her. Feeling her heart accelerate, Clara continued on her way, now more aware of every movement around her. The sound of footsteps returned, this time closer. Despite her fear, Clara didn't rush her pace, trying to remain calm. That was when he heard a hoarse voice coming from behind. "Be careful with the puddle in front of you." It was a man, probably homeless, given the worn tone of his voice. Confused, Clara turned towards the sound, but saw nothing but the usual darkness. The voice insisted, "It's raining too much for you to be alone here, girl." At first, Clara hesitated, but there was something in the man's voice that made her trust. She stopped, waiting for him to approach. He smelled tobacco and damp earth before hearing his footsteps, a confirmation of his intuition. "Thank you," she replied, not knowing exactly how to act. The man's presence was strange, but at the same time, comforting. He seemed more concerned about her than anything else, which sparked a spark of curiosity in her heart. She smiled, even though he couldn't see it. However, the rain didn't let up, and Clara found herself needing to protect herself. "Can you walk me to the corner?" he asked, his voice soft but firm. The man agreed with a simple nod that she couldn't see, but felt in the change in direction of the sound of the footsteps. Together they walked in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, until the safety of a marquee sheltered them from the storm. Clara, relieved, said goodbye and thanked her, but something inside her knew that that chance meeting was not the end of that story. The next morning, Clara was preparing to leave, when the familiar smell of tobacco filled the air again. That smell, now unmistakable, brought back fresh memories of the night before. The meeting in the rain seemed more than just a coincidence. Clara's life was about to change in ways she could never imagine, but at that moment, she still didn't know how far this smell could take her. The day after the meeting in the rain, Clara decided to take a morning walk in the park, as usual. The scent of flowers and freshly cut grass always relaxed her, but this time, there was something different in the air. She smelled tobacco mixed with wet earth again, the same smell that accompanied her the night before. She paused for a moment, trying to locate the source of that familiar scent. When he followed his sense of smell, he found the man from last night sitting on a bench, his eyes lost on the horizon. Without hesitation, Clara approached. "You're here again," he commented, smiling as he sat down on the bench next to him. The man looked at her in surprise, as if he hadn't expected her to remember him, especially given the smell. "I have nowhere else to go," he replied in a voice that mixed resignation and surprise. Clara, realizing the opportunity to get to know the stranger who had helped her better, decided to start a conversation. She offered him an apple that she had in her bag, a simple offering but full of meaning. As the days went by, Clara began to meet the man in the park, always on the same bench, always at the same time. He never revealed much about himself, but Clara, with her gift of perceiving what others couldn't, began to piece together his story. He was a man of few words, but there was a deep pain hidden in every silence. Despite this, each other's company seemed to offer some comfort, a momentary relief from the burdens they both carried. The friendship between Clara and the man grew stronger in an unexpected way. She, who had always lived surrounded by fragrances and refined people, now found comfort in simple conversations with this man who lived on the margins of society. He, in turn, began to look forward to those daily encounters, as if they were a reminder that he was still part of something bigger, that he was not completely forgotten by the world. Clara didn't know her name, but that didn't matter. To her, he was a friend. Over time, Clara began to bring sandwiches and coffee in the mornings, turning those meetings into small picnics. The man, although initially reluctant, accepted the kindness with silent gratitude. And so, what began as a night of fear and uncertainty turned into a friendship that blossomed amid simplicity. But Clara felt that there was something more to the story, something that the man had not yet revealed. She knew that, with time, the truth would come out, and that intuition kept her even closer to him. Since she was little, Clara has always had a special connection with aromas. While other children ran around the yard, she got lost among the flowers, trying every scent that nature had to offer. Her grandmother, who had a huge garden at her home in Ohio, always said that Clara had a blessed nose. It was on those spring afternoons, surrounded by rose bushes and lilies, that Clara discovered her passion for perfumes. Even after losing her vision at the age of 7, due to a rare disease, Clara never let it stop her from following her dreams. On the contrary, it made her rely even more on her sense of smell, which would become her main connection to the world. Over the years, Clara dedicated herself to the study of fragrances. While others depended on their eyes to create, she immersed herself in the smells, exploring every nuance, every note. In her early 20s, Clara was already a respected perfumer in the industry, working at a renowned fragrance house in New York. Her ability to create unique perfumes that evoked memories and emotions quickly made her stand out. But his rise was not easy. In an industry dominated by sight, Clara had to overcome many challenges, including prejudice from colleagues who did not believe that someone blind could be a successful perfumer. But Clara proved them wrong. She developed her own creation methods, where each perfume went through a rigorous testing process carried out by her trained sense of smell. One of his biggest successes was the perfume Essentia de Memoria, which became an international bestseller. For Clara, that perfume represented more than a professional achievement. It was a tribute to his grandfather, who always wore a cologne with notes of cedar and vanilla. By creating that fragrance, Clara immortalized his memory in a bottle, something that millions of people could now share. Despite all her achievements, Clara's life was not without losses. His great love, Rodrigo, came into his life during his college years, when they were both still discovering their passions. Rodrigo was everything Clara wanted: affectionate, funny, and, above all, capable of seeing beyond his disability. They planned a future together, full of adventures and new perfumes to create. However, a tragic car accident took Rodrigo, leaving Clara alone and devastated. The pain of loss was overwhelming, but Clara found solace in her work, creating fragrances that captured the emotions she could not express in words. Even after Rodrigo's death, Clara continued her journey, determined to honor his memory through her art. Pain became a part of her, but also a source of inspiration. Each perfume he created had a piece of his story, his struggle and his lost love. And so, Clara moved on, transforming her pain into something beautiful, something that could be shared with the world. But, even with all the success and recognition, Clara knew that there were still unfinished chapters in her life, stories that needed to be revisited so that she could finally find peace. Clara and Rodrigo met on a sunny afternoon while they were both exploring an aroma fair in Chicago. Rodrigo, a young man full of life and curiosity, was enchanted by the way Clara spoke about each fragrance, as if she were drawing images in the air with words. It was an immediate connection. They spent the entire day together, talking about everything from perfumes to life's little pleasures. And it was on that day that Clara felt for the first time in a long time that the future had a special shine. Rodrigo made her laugh, challenged her to see the world from a different angle and, above all, accepted her completely, without ever letting her blindness be an obstacle. Over time, their relationship deepened. Clara and Rodrigo became inseparable, exploring the city, creating new memories and dreaming of the future they would build together. Rodrigo was by Clara's side in every victory and challenge, providing the support she always needed. He understood her passion for perfumes and encouraged her to follow her dreams, even when things got difficult. The two planned to open a small perfume boutique, where Clara could create personalized fragrances for her customers, while Rodrigo would take care of the practical aspects of the business. Everything seemed perfect, until the day tragedy struck. The accident happened on a cold winter night, when Rodrigo was returning home after a long work meeting. The road was slippery because of the ice, and in a moment of carelessness, Rodrigo's car skidded, colliding head-on with a truck coming in the opposite direction. The impact was fatal. Clara received the news in the middle of the night, and everything around her seemed to fall apart. Losing Rodrigo was like losing a part of herself, a part she knew she could never get back. The grief was deep and paralyzing, leaving her aimless for months. During the period of mourning, Clara isolated herself from the world. Work, which was once his passion, now seemed empty and meaningless. Every perfume she tried to create reminded her of Rodrigo, of his laughs, his touch, and their plans together. She moved away from her friends and family, and began to live in a bubble of sadness and silence. The weeks turned into months, and the pain didn't seem to ease. But it was in this void that Clara began to realize that, to move forward, she would need to transform that pain into something constructive. She knew that Rodrigo wouldn't like to see her like this, lost and without direction. It was then that Clara found the strength to return to her studio, a space that now seemed full of memories and absences. He decided to create a perfume in honor of Rodrigo, something that captured the essence of the man he was. The main notes were deep and woody, representing their strength and resilience, while the touches of citrus and flowers symbolized their joy in life and the love they shared. When the perfume was finally ready, Clara named it Eternal, a tribute to the love that, even in the face of death, continued to live in her heart. Mauro has always been a successful man, a respected businessman, and a strict but loving father. He never imagined that life could turn upside down so suddenly. The death of his son, Rodrigo, was the hardest blow he had ever faced, a pain no parent should feel. After the accident, Mauro began to blame himself incessantly, reliving every moment when he thought he could have done something different to protect his son. Every memory, every photo, every corner of the house reminded him of Rodrigo, and this pain was eating him up inside, making it impossible to move on. Mauro, unable to deal with the guilt and grief, began to withdraw from everything and everyone. The work, which was once his passion and his life, has completely lost its meaning. He isolated himself from friends, family, and eventually abandoned his home. The weight of the loss was so great that he felt he no longer deserved anything, not even the life he still had. Thus, Mauro began to wander the streets of New York aimlessly, without purpose. Each day was a repetition of emptiness, an endless cycle of pain and regret. Life on the streets was not easy for Mauro. He, who had always been accustomed to comfort, now faced the cold, hunger, and loneliness as a self-imposed penance. He refused to accept help, convinced that he deserved to suffer for not being able to protect his son. The nights were the worst, when the silence allowed thoughts to take over, and memories of Rodrigo haunted him like ghosts. Mauro became just another invisible face in the crowd, a man lost in his own pain, with no hope of redemption. Despite his determination to punish himself, there were times when Mauro found himself conflicted. Part of him knew that this wasn't what Rodrigo would have wanted for him, that his son would never blame him the way he blamed himself. But the other part, the one more dominated by pain, was unable to accept forgiveness. Mauro convinced himself that, by suffering, he was somehow connecting to Rodrigo, as if that pain kept him close to the son he lost. It was a destructive cycle, but one that, for Morrow, seemed to be the only way to keep Rodrigo's memory alive. However, life on the streets also brought unexpected encounters. People who, like him, carried their own crosses and stories of pain. It was in these meetings that Morrow began to realize, albeit slowly, that perhaps there was another way to deal with his loss. He met other parents who also lost children. People who, despite the pain, managed to find a way to move forward. These encounters planted a small seed of hope in Morrow, but he was not yet ready to leave his grief behind. However, destiny was already beginning to weave new threads for his story, threads that would connect him to Clara again, in a way he could never imagine. Clara's birthday has always been an intimate celebration, surrounded by close friends and family. However, that year, something inside her pushed her to do something different. She decided to organize a small party in her studio, a place full of souvenirs and fragrances that she had created. The smell of roses, lavender, and a hint of vanilla permeated the air, creating a warm and familiar atmosphere. Among the guests was the man with whom she had developed an unlikely friendship over the past few months. One who, to her, did not yet have a name, but who had become part of her daily routine. The man, reluctant at first, accepted Clara's invitation, not knowing what to expect. When he arrived at the studio, wearing the best clothes he could find, he felt out of place, surrounded by people who clearly belonged to a different world than his own. However, Clara greeted him with a warm smile, and he quickly felt more at ease. The party was small, but filled with lively conversation and gentle laughter. Clara was happy, but there was a tension in the air, something that seemed to be lurking, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. In the middle of the party, when the guests were already settling down for the cake, Clara approached the man and asked, with her usual kindness, if he would like to say a few words. Visibly uncomfortable, he hesitated, but something inside him told him it was time to speak. He began to speak quietly, thanking Clara for her kindness, but as the words came out, a deeper truth began to emerge. He confessed that he was not just any beggar. With a trembling voice, he finally revealed his true identity. Morrow, Rodrigo's father, the man Clara loved and lost. Silence fell over the room. Clara, unable to see, felt the impact of that revelation through the reactions of others. His mind raced in a whirlwind of emotions, trying to piece together the puzzle that now made sense. The smell of tobacco, the silent sadness, the reason he sought her out every day. Everything was connected. Morrow continued, apologizing for his past behavior, for not accepting her relationship with Rodrigo, and even more so, for having walked away when Clara needed support most. He talked about the guilt that consumed him, about how the loss of Rodrigo had destroyed him, driving him to the streets. Clara, for a moment, was silent, absorbing everything. The emotions were intense: anger, sadness, compassion, but most of all, there was a deep understanding. She knew what it was like to lose someone you loved. She knew how pain could consume a person from the inside. Morrow, in front of her, was no longer the harsh man she had known in the past, but a broken man, looking for redemption. His words floated through the air, penetrating Clara's heart. And it was there, in the midst of that revelation, that she realized that forgiveness could be the way for both of them to find peace. Morrow's revelation left Clara in a state of deep introspection. The party, which was once a time of celebration, turned into a silent reflection for everyone present. Clara, still processing everything she had just heard, decided to retreat to a quieter corner of the studio, where the soft, familiar fragrances could help her think clearly. Morrow, realizing the impact of her words, did not follow her immediately. He knew that this moment required patience and understanding, something he had not shown in the past. A few minutes passed before Clara called Morrow to join her. Sitting side by side, in silence, the environment around them seemed filled with an almost palpable tension. Finally, Clara broke the silence. "I also lost someone, Morrow. And for a long time, I kept this pain inside me, not knowing how to move forward." His voice was calm, but full of emotion. She continued, explaining that, for years, she felt angry not only about the loss of Rodrigo, but also about not having had Moro's support at such a crucial moment. However, upon hearing Moro's story, something inside her began to change. Clara knew, in her heart, that forgiveness was a necessary step. She understood that the pain they both carried could turn into a bond, a bridge to something new and healing. With a serenity that only time and reflection could provide, Clara extended her hand to Moro, a simple gesture, but full of meaning. "I forgive you, Moro. And it's not just for you, but for me too. Because I know that, by forgiving, I'm freeing not only you, but myself from this pain that has held us back for so long." Those words, so difficult to say, were received with tears of relief from Moro. Moro, overcome by emotion, shook Clara's hand, feeling for the first time in years a weight being lifted from his shoulders. He knew that her forgiveness was the first step in starting to forgive himself. From that moment on, something changed between the two. Their shared pain no longer separated them. Rather, it brought them together on a journey of healing and reconciliation. Moro, who had punished himself for so long, now saw a new possibility. The chance to rebuild his life alongside Clara, not as a replacement for what they lost, but as a way to honor Rodrigo's memory. Over time, Clara and Moro began to spend more time together, talking about Rodrigo, what he meant to each of them, and how they could continue to honor his memory. Their relationship, built on forgiveness and mutual understanding, grew stronger, creating a new dynamic that neither of them had anticipated. Life went on, and together, they found a new purpose, something that would motivate them to move forward and transform the pain into something that could bring light not only to themselves, but also to others facing similar struggles. Inspired by the pain they shared and the desire to turn that pain into something positive, Clara and Moro began discussing how they could truly honor Rodrigo's memory. The conversations naturally flowed towards the idea of helping those who, like Moro, found themselves lost on the streets, aimless and without hope. This is how the idea of founding an organization that could offer support and rehabilitation to homeless people came about, giving them a new chance to rebuild their lives. They decided that this foundation would bear Rodrigo's name, as a tribute to the young man whose life was cut short so soon, but whose memory would now serve as a light for others. Clara, with her expertise in perfumes and her contact with several companies, began to use her connections to raise funds and partnerships. Moro, on the other hand, brought his life experience, his deep understanding of the difficulties faced by those who live on the streets. Together, they formed a dedicated team, made up of psychologists, social workers, and volunteers who shared the same dream: to give people a second chance. The Rodrigo Foundation was born from the conviction that, even in the midst of darkness, there is always a possibility of redemption and a fresh start. The foundation quickly began to gain recognition in the city, not only for the work it did, but for the inspiring story that motivated it. People who heard about Clara and Moro, about the loss they suffered and how they turned that loss into something so meaningful, felt touched and inspired to contribute. The Rodrigo Foundation's work went beyond just providing shelter and food. It was a place where people could find dignity, receive counseling, and prepare to re-enter society. Each person who entered the Foundation's doors was treated with respect and empathy, something that Clara and Moro were keen to guarantee. As time went by, Fundação Rodrigo grew and began to expand its operations. In addition to offering immediate support, they also began developing job training programs, helping people acquire new skills that would allow them to find employment and support themselves. For Clara, seeing the foundation blossom was like watching a new fragrance take shape, each note carefully chosen to create something harmonious and meaningful. Moro, in turn, felt that he was finally doing something that Rodrigo would be proud of. He dedicated each day to honoring his son's memory by helping those who needed it most. The Rodrigo Foundation has become more than a simple organization. It became a movement, living proof that, even in the most desperate situations, it is possible to find hope. Clara and Moro, looking at what they built together, felt that they had finally found a way to transform pain into purpose, to use Rodrigo's memory to light the path of so many other lives. But, despite all the success and impact of the foundation, Clara felt that there was still more to come, something that would complete this cycle of healing and renewal. She knew that life continued to surprise, and she was ready for whatever came next. With the success of Fundação Rodrigo, Clara's life began to find a new balance. Despite still carrying Rodrigo's memory in her heart, she felt she was ready to make room for new experiences, new connections. It was during one of the foundation's planning meetings that Clara met João, a businessman who had become one of the institution's main donors. João was a kind man, with an easy smile and eyes that radiated an infectious calm. He was interested not only in the foundation's work, but also in the person Clara was, her strength, her determination, and the unique way she saw the world. João began to attend the foundation more regularly, not just as a donor, but as someone willing to roll up his sleeves and help. He and Clara began spending more time together, whether planning new projects for the foundation or simply talking about life. Little by little, a deeper connection began to emerge between them, something that Clara didn't expect, but that she couldn't ignore. João, with his patience and understanding, managed to touch parts of Clara's heart that she thought were closed forever. He did not try to replace Rodrigo, but respected his memory, understanding that Clara's love for Rodrigo would never cease to exist. Over time, this friendship evolved into something more. Clara, although initially reluctant, realized that she was falling in love with João. He brought a new light into her life, a sense of security and joy that she had not felt in a long time. João, in turn, found himself increasingly involved not only with Clara, but with the entire mission of the foundation. He proposed to her at one of the foundation's charity events, in a simple but deeply meaningful way. Clara, moved, accepted, feeling that, finally, she was ready to begin a new phase of her life, without forgetting the past, but also without allowing it to prevent her from being happy. The wedding was an intimate celebration, surrounded by friends and those who were part of Clara and Mauro's journey. Mauro, who now played an important role in Clara's life, was the first to give the couple his blessing. He knew that João was the right man for Clara, someone who would make her happy and who, at the same time, would honor Rodrigo's memory. The ceremony was simple, but full of meaning, reflecting the essence of who Clara and João were. Together, they promised to continue the work at Fundação Rodrigo, expanding its operations and reaching even more people in need. Shortly after the wedding, Clara and João discovered that they were expecting a child. The news brought new joy to both of their lives, a feeling of renewal and continuity. Clara, who had gone through so much pain and challenges, now saw before her the opportunity to build a new family, alongside a man who loved her deeply. Mauro, who had already found peace in his new life, couldn't be happier to know that he would become a grandfather. The birth of Clara and João's daughter brought a new purpose to all of them, a new generation that would carry with them the legacy of love, forgiveness, and reconciliation that had transformed so many lives. With the birth of her daughter, Clara felt that life had come full circle. The small studio, where she once spent hours creating perfumes that captured memories and emotions, was now also filled with the laughter and soft cries of a new life. The girl, who was named Rose, in honor of Clara's favorite flowers, brought renewed light to everyone. Every moment with Rosa was a reminder that despite hardship and loss, life always found a way to blossom again. For Clara, Rosa was the embodiment of the love she and João shared, and also a bridge between the past and the future. The expansion of Clara and João's perfume company was a reflection of this new chapter. With João's support, Clara was able to take her brand beyond New York, reaching new markets and sharing her creations with an even larger audience. But more than financial success, what really mattered to them was the message each perfume carried. The message that even in the most difficult situations, there is always a fragrance of hope to be found. Each new creation was dedicated to those facing challenges in their lives, as a reminder that love and forgiveness always prevail. Mauro, in turn, found his true purpose by dedicating himself entirely to the Rodrigo Foundation. He became a central figure in the organization, not only because of his life story, but because of the passion with which he dedicated himself to his work. Mauro, who had previously been consumed by guilt, now used that same energy to help others find their way back to dignity. He became a mentor to many who joined the foundation, sharing his own experiences and showing that despite everything, there is always a chance to start over. Moro's impact on these people's lives was profound and lasting. The Rodrigo Foundation continued to grow, becoming a symbol of hope for the entire city. Clara, João, and Mauro worked together, each contributing in their own way to the Foundation's mission. The story of Clara, Mauro, and the love that brought them all together inspired not only the Foundation's beneficiaries, but also the volunteers and donors who supported the cause. The pain that once separated them now united them in a greater cause, creating a legacy that, over time, began to influence the lives of thousands of people. This legacy was not just about material help, but about the transformative power of love and forgiveness. Over the years, Rosa grew up in this environment of love, respect, and service to others. She became the natural heir to everything her parents and grandfather had built. From an early age, Rosa accompanied Clara and Mauro at the Foundation, learning about the importance of helping others and keeping the memory of those who came before her alive. And so, Clara's story, which began with a passion for perfumes and a personal tragedy, evolved into something much greater. A story of redemption, of how love can heal the deepest wounds, and of how forgiveness can open doors to a future full of possibilities. Sometimes, life presents us with situations that challenge our understanding, forcing us to see beyond appearances. Clara learned, in the most unexpected way, that people can carry deep secrets, and that forgiveness and reconciliation are powerful ways to transform pain into purpose. And you? Have you ever wondered how you would deal with a revelation as shocking as Clara's? Are you prepared to forgive and allow the past to become a bridge to new opportunities? If this story touched you, if you believe in the power of redemption and the impact we can have on the lives of others, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. This way, you don't miss any inspiring content like this and continue learning how to transform challenges into opportunities.